In recent weeks, I made a real friend of Jackie O. She's helped talk me through what it's like to be backstabbed by your co-host and betrayed by your producer.
Does that mean I'm going to get $15 million out of this?
Show. And I listened to the show without me. Obviously, it's pretty flat. My lawyers have finished talking to your lawyers, and here I am. It's good to be back on the Feeney Files as David Feeney, the one and only David Feeney on the Feeney Files. With what's her name as a guest.
Before we get going, a huge thank you to our newest Patreon supporters, Margot, Pauline, Janet, Person Down Under, and Cute Pattern 1098. Genuinely, thank you for joining our Patreon community. You are the reason why you keep this show going. And quick housekeeping for that crew, check your DMs and send through your shipping address if you haven't already, so we can mail your socially democratic pack out to you. Now, we've got a bunch of new live shows coming up and we'd love to see you at them. First up, if you're in Sydney, come see us live. We're doing a show at the New South Wales Labor Conference on Saturday, the 4th of July at 4 p.m. at the Sydney Town Hall as a part of the Fringe program. No tickets. You just need to show up. You've got to be registered as either an observer, or I think you've got to be a party member. But we genuinely love to see you all there. So come along and say hello. Then we're heading to the ALP National Conference in Adelaide, which is in late July. And we've got 2 live shows for you there. The first is part of the Fringe program, and we're getting into a big topic that always is discussed at ALP national conferences: party membership. How do we grow it? How do we keep evolving as a genuine people-based organisation? And if you got Fringe access, thinking you can just rock up, same deal, first in, best dressed. Then stick around, because at 5:15 Adelaide time, we're recording a live episode of the Feeney Files with Jessie McCrone, and that's at the Jade on Flinders Street. So it's actually in the city, not down at the conference. This one's at a ticketed event. It's $45 and tickets are on sale right now. They're limited. I think the venue only holds just a tick over 100. There are links to get your tickets in the show notes. So grab a ticket before they're all gone, and let's close out the conference together. It will be a lot of fun. One more we really want to get on your radar as well before I wrap all this up. Send a woman to Washington. Every year, Dunn Street takes a delegation over to Washington, D.C. and New York, meeting people from across the Democratic Party, progressive organisations, think tanks, government and media, to learn how they're tackling a lot of the same challenges that we're facing here in Australia. This year's Dunn Street mission is in late September, but it's not cheap to get there, and that often means that folks from our movement miss out. So the Dunn Street alumni, past delegates, are funding a seat for a woman from the Labor movement who wouldn't otherwise have the means to go. So there's an application process and a selection panel of former women delegates. The applications close on the 31st of July. If that's you or someone you know, then the link to complete the application form is in the show notes. And please spread the word on this one. We really want to see folks put in an application to join us in Washington and New York in September this year. The presenting sponsor for Socially Democratic is Dunn Street. Dunn Street is a campaign agency that specialises in community organising. We only work with people and organisations who want to build power to make the world a better place. And if you want to create change in your world in 2026, then hit us up at dunnstreet.com.au. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. For over a century, Maurice Blackburn has stood up for fairness, championing the rights of everyday Australians and shaping landmark legal reforms. Today, they're harnessing new technologies to make justice more accessible, more efficient, and more responsive to the needs of modern Australia. All right, let's get on with today's episode. We are taping this one on a Tuesday afternoon. I would even call it early evening for a change, on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. Very cold, overcast, grey day here in Melbourne. It's the end of the month, June 23rd, well, almost the end of the month. That means it's time for our monthly episode where we recap Australian politics and other tangential things that may creep into our attention for the last month. It's the Feeney Files with Jessie McCrone, and I'd like to welcome our two regular guests. She's the former Deputy Chief of Staff to Daniel Andrews and now a Managing Partner at Ephemeris Advisory. Jessie, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Stephen. I was here last month as well.
You were? I see you've upped your studio background.
It's very Victorian, isn't it? This is a metro tunnel. That's a metro tunnel flag. There you go. There's a reason for people to get on the YouTube link and watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a man that needs some introduction. He was a former Labor politician and election-winning campaign director. That's the most important thing. And a man that's made no attempt to clean up his office at all since he's been doing this show for almost a year now. Welcome back to the episode, David Feeney.
Thank you very much. And it's good to, be back. I've been in recent weeks, I made a real friend of Jackie O, and she's been a great comfort to me. She's helped talk me through what it's like to be backstabbed by your co-host and betrayed by your producer.
Does that mean I'm going to get $15 million out of this?
Show. And, I listened to the show without me. Obviously, it's pretty flat. And so obviously you've had to bring me back. My lawyers have finished talking to your lawyers, and here I am. It's good to be back on the Feeney Files as David Feeney, the one and only David Feeney, on the Feeney Files with what's her name as a guest.
I'm impressed,
Maybe
David.
Lawyers and get someone who can manage your calendar, I think, is probably the better investment here.
I'm impressed David's aware of people on FM radio. That's
yeah.
All right. A lot has happened in the last month.
Or 2 months.
Or 2 months, I know. Well,
Right,
David, you missed out on talking about a budget, and I don't think that was, too bad.
I had some pretty good insights, but you know what?
Moved on.
He absolutely would have predicted that they were going to end up backflipping on the things they did. That was what he was going to say the day after the budget.
Yeah. I was stuck in meetings with Iranian negotiators at the time and couldn't get out.
That went well.
Yeah, good job by you.
It's a work in progress. Victory comes in many different shapes and sizes.
Okay, are we ready? Things that happened this month, and the two major ones we're going to focus on before we get into categories. We had a whole heap of polls, 5 in fact, dropped this month. One from Newspoll at the start of the month, as they do, 2 from Roy Morgan, 1 from Resolve, 1 from YouGov. I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. One Nation continue to hold strong numbers in their in the published polls with their primary vote. They also managed to raise considerable amount of money in a very, very short period of time with their Fire the Liar digital fundraising efforts. Pauline Hanson addressed the National Press Club, and a whole bunch of stories fell out of that, including making the case that under One Nation, Australia will be a monoculture, defunding of institutions like the ABC, SBS, Aboriginal services, multicultural services, cuts to childcare, defending her voting record on keeping wages low and backing in small business, and a whole bunch of other things. Also, we had the the online activist network GetUp managed to execute a stunt by lowering a poster, which we'll talk a bit about as well. If we aggregate all of the polls, and also we've got some stuff we'll talk about in terms of Victorian state politics too, but let's talk about One Nation first of all, and I just want to just do some aggregating of the polls. The primaries of those averages across those 5 polls have the Labor Party on 27.6% primary, One Nation on 29.4% primary, and the Coalition on 18.7%. Looking at those federal numbers, particularly in the Resolve poll, doesn't make for great reading for Labor. It's now June. We've been watching One Nation rise in the polls and hold those numbers for 6 months now. And both at a federal level and even here in Victoria, we've got an election in a couple of months' time, have yet to, what I would say, mount a counter-argument against One Nation and start to see a dent. Now, I'm wondering to you, first of all, David Feeney, is this intentional by Labor? Are we keeping our powder dry? Are we lost for words? Or are we sort of stumbling around in the dark wondering how exactly do we approach this? What's your read on it after 6 months of them having some success?
I think Labor is still range finding. It's still working out what is an effective message and who are we really trying to talk to and how would we talk to them. You might remember at the end of last year, my prediction was that this bubble would burst when the Liberal Party resumed normal broadcasting because they'd gone offline for a period of time. I was wrong about that. They haven't. I think it's arguable that the Liberals have never resumed normal broadcasting, but we're now trapped in a cycle where and we've, of course, very familiar with this overseas, where the media are so obsessed / appalled by Pauline Hanson that they're going to cover her every utterance and manoeuvre in great detail, and love her or hate her, she holds centre stage. That's bad for Labor, but it's diabolical for the coalition. It's bad for Labor because, of course, the whole critique, her whole raison d'etre is to fight us, and, you know, her proclamations on this are many and varied, you know, as well as the liar line. You know, it's workers and you know, small businesses being hard done by, and, you know, yada yada yada. But it's bad for Labor, and we do watch part of our constituency get seduced by this siren song of grievance. But it's diabolical for the Tories because they've been swept out of the stage altogether, and they're kind of disappearing in the rearview mirror. They're sort of ceasing to become part of the conversation. We're seeing this, interestingly enough, I think, with the Greens too. You may not remember this, but the Greens are a political party that are in Canberra, and they you know, but you may recall years ago they had a leader who got on the telly occasionally. Those days are over.
They were considered the anti-establishment party.
They were considered the anti-establishment party, and we'll come back to this, but they're now very much the cultural establishment party. And as I've remarked before, I think there is a sort of a global is probably overstating it, but across the Western world, there's an ecosystem feeding this phenomena, which is why you so often see One Nation and its sort of adjacent cheerleaders desperately trying to bring into the Australian context debates that are hot and roaring in the United States and the United Kingdom. So, the trans stuff Pauline has raised, the Australian has raised, you know, they're really keen to try and bring that issue to the forefront to sort of to make sure that the culture wars are big. They're desperately trying to get immigration going. And so even though, you know, objectively I thought to myself, well, we don't have the same immigration debate that's so toxic in the United States and the UK because there is a sense that we control our borders here, that immigration is managed rather than managing us. We don't have the same sort of toxic woke debates and cultural wars here in Australia. But it seems like that actually doesn't matter because those debates are coming to us whether we like it or not because people are watching it on YouTube or wherever, and they're bringing that into the Australian conversation and they're feeling those grievances and voting those grievances. So I think, to circle back to your question, I think Labor is still sort of analysing this like everybody else. Where did this come from? What is driving it? And how do we speak to the people who are supporting this phenomenon? I mean, a party that, you know, 8 months ago was in, 7-8%, today in the 30s, led by a woman who's been in Australian politics for 30 years, was at one point Australia's least popular politician. Today, one of the most popular. Her time has come. So we need to understand it before we jump in and start fighting.
Jessie.
Yeah, and the question is more urgent in some parts of Australia than it is in others. There are elections coming in Victoria, New South Wales will have one, and then we'll have a federal election as well. And I can appreciate that the federal Labor Party has a little bit more time and space to analyse these things. I would say a couple of things in response to what David has put. And the first is there has been no treatment of the voters of a message, of a anti-Hanson full-born campaign. There are politicians who are out there saying things. It's all very tactical, but there hasn't been a clear, heavily weighted treatment of One Nation voters to move them. And I think until that, they came up at the South Australian election. I think we can all agree that the South Australian Labor Party didn't spend, and look, won handily, and I'm not saying it was the wrong call, but they didn't run a One Nation paid campaign. And the Victorian campaign will be the first one we see. So there are some quarters that are getting very nervous and sort of suggesting this is some sort of runaway train. I will be more nervous when those voters have been fully treated with messaging that has been tested as to the challenges with One Nation. It has been put to me that, they tried that in the Democrats, trying to tie Trump to, rich people, a little bit like some are trying to tie Pauline Hanson. Well, she is in bed with Gina Reinhart. They're not trying to tie her to them. They are together. I think that Australia's context is very different. We have, for the same reasons that that David was saying, that the debate here feels more polite or less extreme, is we do have compulsory voting. We do have preferential voting. Both things are different to the American and the English and the UK system. So I will be, I guess I am similarly checking my range in terms of the One Nation Party. I think the biggest challenge has not been only that the Libs have vacated the field after the election. I think part of this, this is based on feels and vibes, I partly think that the resurgence of One Nation is down to the fact that, one, the Liberal Party did not talk about migration at the last election, and I think that there are a bunch of people who wanted them to or felt let down by them who didn't feel they had anyone else to vote for. And I think the size of the Labor win has surprised and angered a lot of people who didn't think that was going to happen. Not majority of people, but there is a very motivated group of people who were shocked by the victory and are looking for another way to exercise their politics that isn't through the Liberal Party. So I think there are a bunch of reasons. How far it will go and how damaging it will be, the Victorian election is looming and will give us a far stronger
it's
insight.
like wrestling a column of smoke, isn't it? None of the standard rules of engagement apply. And she's kind of got that Trump quality where the sort of inaccuracies and the hopelessness are baked in and people forgive her for.
Yeah, there's sort of that's what you get as part of the package.
Yeah, that she's not going to be erudite and she's not going to get stuff right, and everyone seems to forgive her for things that would do slaughter other politicians. What's interesting to me is Barnaby Joyce, who's kind of the National Party mainstream politician. She's grafted onto her show, and he's kind of got that same bumbling hopelessness baked into his brand as well. So the two of them can kind of strut around the Australian political scene and be forgiven for, falling over the banana peel and, messing up their facts and their language. And that's like that's a little bit Trump-esque. It makes them, a bit Teflon and a bit more formidable.
It is, but Trump is still an unpopular character here. And from all that I've heard from the current research being done, Pauline Hanson, when attached to Trump, it's like poison. The fact that she is a huge supporter of his and has if Dunn could be attached to Trump, you bet that Hanson can be. And Australian voters do not like him. So this is kind of what I'm saying about a fully mounted campaign against her party will be a fascinating thing to watch.
It needs to be beautifully executed.
It does. I agree with that.
And
if you're telling Trump voters that they're stupid, I know we're not going to make that mistake.
No. Well, I hope we aren't.
It's happening. We, as in the Labor Party, aren't doing that because we haven't said anything yet, but
the movement.
Like people, some folks are falling into that trap.
The chattering class.
Yeah,
right.
My
the chattering classes, to be fair to them, haven't got a Greens leader to talk about anymore because whoever they are, identity unknown, refuses to do any media.
Drink. I'm interested in getting your thoughts from Hanson's appearance at the National Press Club last week, and were there things that dropped out of her remarks that could be explored in terms of where we can find a chink in the armor? I do like that expression, though, you said before, trying to, what does it say, David? Trying to
wrestle a column of
wrestle
smoke.
with smoke. Ways in which we can turn that smoke into something a bit more solid. The Trump one is definitely an interesting angle because she often can't resist. I think she looks at Donald and thinks that there's a model there for ways in which she can frame her own leadership on. And I thought actually Annabelle Crowe wrote an interesting article during the week about her press conference talking about she went there looking for a fight. She didn't go there to do a traditional kind of address. She wanted a fight, and all the journos worked that out and then were very respectful in terms of their questions they were asking. So, and there were, questions of substance. And
she gave her a fight. She gave them the fight regardless.
Yeah, well, because the Guardian journalist then went personal, and then that was then she went after it, and she got that kind of. So there was that, but these are two areas I thought were interesting.
Whether she went personal or asked a legitimate question about ethics is probably a question. But.
Yeah, but it enabled her. No, every other question was on policy.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was more sort of to ethics and whatnot. I thought the monocultural stuff was interesting. In practice, One Nation, if One Nation formed a government, their policies would hit a lot of voters that actually are drifting towards them. Multi-generational migrants of the Greek, Italian, Indian, multicultural communities. And that's a pressure point because under this Hanson and this monoculture idea, funding for Greek schools, gone. Funding for Chinese New Year celebrations, gone. Funding for Il Globo radio station, the Italian community, gone. And I just think that, Diwali festivals, gone. And then the other one is wages. The other group that, I think is migrating to her is in particular is women, and women who are probably working in jobs that are either on minimum wage or on an award or on a collective agreement, and rely on penalty rates and rely on, loadings and overtime. And, when she was asked a couple of questions around that, she went straight into backing small business because that's her safe space. That's where she's from. That's where she's comfortable. And also around childcare, to which she backtracked today on that. And John Armitage always talked about candidates either need to be seen as caring or credible. And I think Pauline's seen as caring by a certain cohort of voter that's moving towards her because she cares about their needs and understands what
she may not have the answers, but she understands the problem.
Yeah, I don't think they think she's credible. And I think they're okay with that. They're comfortable with that. And I think the credibility will eventually take care of itself because if she starts backflipping all the time, people will go, well, okay, come on, Pauline, what are you doing here? But if we can attack the caring element of her leadership that actually will directly impact on the things that you like in your life, then I think we're going to make some headway. Well, there's my idea. That's my theory at this stage. I'd like us for us to test it out. We actually haven't tested it out yet. We kind of get a sense that Labor's been pretty quiet on all of this at the moment, but I'd like to start to see some movement on that. These are my reflections from the address. I'll go to you, David, first, because you're shaking your head about the monocultural stuff. But just your thoughts on what you learned from the address, and maybe is there inroads that we can start to pick up some votes from One Nation?
Well, I thought it was clever of her to do it, and it was again seizing centre stage and insisting on being taken seriously. She and her team would have well understood that if that engendered a dynamic where lots of schmick and schmarmy journalists started to tear her to pieces, that would just enhance her credentials as a figure of sympathy being attacked by, the same sort of snobby and polished elites that have been screwing ordinary people for years. So I thought she was wise to do it, and the setup was good. I think opening up the sort of abortion, reproductive rights stuff is a big line of vulnerability for her, and was a mistake. I think the sort of workers, there's always a lazy worker. It's too hard to sack people. Was a mistake. I don't know what. This is the thing, right? How much planning can you put into somebody like Pauline? She is what she is.
I think she thinks those things.
Yes, I just don't think she should say those things. It's completely counterintuitive to her brand. On the sort of, I think multiculturalism has become, at best, a two-edged sword, at worst, a negative. And because multiculturalism is a more controversial, I mean, we grew up in an era where multiculturalism was like a catechism. Everyone just said, yes, we live in a multicultural state and that's good, tick, move on. It wasn't discussed or debated. That's not true anymore. And I think what she's really doing is speaking in code, sometimes nakedly, sometimes in code, to an anti-Islamic sentiment. I think it's quite targeted. I don't think Greek migrants to Australia, and I don't think the Italians who've been here in a little house since the 1950s are going to feel threatened by her or any of her language. I think she's targeting Islamic Australia, and I think she's clear about that, and I think her people are clear about that.
Yeah, so
but David, just that point, but the campaign should, is what I'm saying. The campaign should make them feel threatened.
Like, I think your point is there's a space there. Like the word monoculture to me is scarier because it hasn't been well defined. It hasn't been well defined by her, and I think is an opportunity to define what she is presenting.
No, but it speaks to the kind of ethno-nationalist stuff that she's watching and being influenced by.
I think there's a difference between saying shared values, which I think 90% of Australians can get around, this idea that if you come here, we have to have shared values, run law for all sort of style stuff, and monoculture, which frankly to me, and I'd be interested in about the wider public, sort of raises this concept of a government kind of enforcing one culture.
Like one law for everybody, no Sharia law. I think maybe it's a point of vulnerability. I suspect it isn't.
I think monoculture is not a well understood term.
No, I don't know if people will find it scary, but maybe they would. We're range finding, so.
Do you know what I find scary? One Nation's drive to raise money. That worried me. This Fire the Liar anti-Albanese fundraiser, which launched at 6:04 a.m. on Wednesday, the 10th of June. By 6:30 that night, it had already bagged $946,000. It hit $1 million just after it ticked over 24 hours. The campaign drew more than 28,000 donors at an average of $59 a donor. It got $3.5 million within 48 hours, and most recent figures, it's up around $4 million in just
Who's giving us the average?
There was an independent body that went, because Albo came out and said, I question the figures, and then a bunch of people actually went and looked at it and was like, because it's all publicly listed, and they were like, oh, no, it all actually stacks up. Yeah. Labor's response was pedestrian at best, questioning the numbers. Wayne Swan sort of went after the optics, branding One Nation the billionaires party and tying the gene of Reinhardt. It's like, oh, my God, like Wayne, fair dinkum. And they didn't muck around. $300,000 straight away into TV advertising, billboard, digital, streaming for an ad blitz for State of Origin.
And we're talking good, polished material, which leads to the suspicion that that this sort of global network of alt-right operators are helping her,
they've been pretty open that they've been speaking to Americans and others about how to campaign and how to harness this vibe. I am shocked that the concept of a global network isn't more concerning to her more ardent supporters, because I would have thought that's the kind of thing that they would reject, a global network of anything. To go to the point about the fundraising, though, I think that it kind of also speaks to the messaging that came out about her address. Even if you ignore what she said, a lot of the right-wing influencers were kind of talking about how this One Nation, Pauline's address was long time coming. They kind of talked about it like she'd been kept out this whole time and she always deserved a space on this stage. And there's been the institutions at all times keeping Pauline from us, which we know is not at all how it's worked. She's been a minority figure in terms of politics for a very long time. The concept of giving her a National Press Club address is just farcical. Not now, but then. But it also speaks to her fundraising capacity. There is just a bit of, I don't want to say Mandela, but like there is this kind of she's the underdog, we've got to back her messaging coming out from that group, which kind of explains if it is small donations, that kind of the push.
And that's her strong frame, underdog.
Yeah.
And every time I'm just interested to get your thoughts on the GetUp stunt. And I've oscillated between thinking that actually when I first saw it, I was like, oh, no, this is going to be terrible. And then I sort of went, oh, look, the message was to the point we were saying before, it's kind of a message that we think that may resonate, right? But then I thought the actual stunt itself was trying to embarrass her, and I think people would feel sorry for her. Therefore, once again, reaffirming that she is the underdog.
Yeah, look, I think people have been very quick, certainly on our side of politics, to have hot takes about this. And there's a lot of people on LinkedIn talking about how this is the worst communications move ever from GetUp, a huge own goal. I genuinely don't know. I've not seen any research about whether this message works. There were a couple of things I thought about it. One, there would have been a debate in GetUp about whether they go with a "you're a racist, Pauline" message. And I frankly think that it's good they went with the economic one.
Yeah.
Two, it was very clean. Like it was very clear that was going to be the photo. Like in terms of setup, it's a picture of her. There's the numbers on the the design was good. Three, and I've said this to you, Stephen, thank God they didn't have some trot with like half her head shaved off and like a nose ring, like storming the stage to do it. Like it was very elegantly done. We didn't have the interview with the protester who's jostling against cops after. It was just kind of, this is the message. So in terms of execution, I think that there was some merit to it. Like the message to some extent was speaking for itself. I am also very suspicious at how hard the right have gone about how it was it was an own goal and it was an invasion of security and blah, blah, that makes me wonder whether they think it was a good stunt. I don't actually know whether the message will work and what most Australians would think about it, but everyone else on the internet seems to, which is very impressive for them.
And we're on the internet, so we've got opinions too. David, what do you reckon?
Well, first I should admit a conflict, which is that I hate GetUp.
Well, of course we hate GetUp.
Oh, God, what
This is the first time they got offline. That also should be applauded.
They are just a bunch of amateurs wrecking. Anyway, I loathe them. I loathe their work. This was so typical of them, wasn't it? Because what is it about? It's not really about the message. It's not even really about Pauline. It's about GetUp, justifying its existence to its miserably dwindling donor base. This is a bunch of lefties sitting on a couch trying to justify their existence so that some idiot continues to send them $20 a month. And of course, what do? They engender sympathy for Pauline Hanson. They give her and her right-wing cheer squad the opportunity to rant a little further. It was not a media opportunity for GetUp. It was just more media for Pauline Hanson.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
Sometimes you don't have research. You just follow your instincts. Like a bunch of whackers celebrating this drop-down poster that produces no sympathy for GetUp, but only sympathy for Pauline Hanson. And with Barnaby wringing his hand saying, what if it had been a bomb?
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Like there should be better security at the press club. Absolutely.
There needs to be better security around GetUp and stopping them from doing anything.
The security is not GetUp's job.
Unless we can get, One Nation to buy them out and take on their creative team, they're no use to us at all.
I don't know. That's suggesting I don't know if I agree with you on that.
When GetUp rings the Labor MP and says, we're coming into your electorate to help, I promise you that's when you shit yourself. You know that a bunch of amateurs are going to be wandering around trying to get themselves publicity with whatever unhelpful message they came up with over a stoner night the night before.
Do you think more Australians now know that she is $100,000 richer and that she voted against wage increases? Isn't that the question?
I don't think people talked about the message at all. I think they talked about the cast of strange characters who arranged to
It
put
increased it on her search results.
Okay.
Like it did.
Well, whenever you controlled the levers of power, you never did anything this stupid. So, you know, what's going on?
I'm going to get that on a T-shirt.
Very good. One other thing that just sort of fell out of it, talking to some journalists, they were sort of going, "Oh God, we're so uncomfortable about her appearing at, the I guess it's what is it the National Press Club is sort of seen as like it's like sacred ground for journalists, and how they felt about her walking into this space and giving it an address."
Journalists made it about themselves.
Yeah, platforming Pauline Hanson, reporting about it.
Because remember, they're not just journalists; they're celebrities.
Well, I mean, I said to one of them, I think you lost your right to be uncomfortable when television put Pauline Hanson on Dancing with the Stars in 2004. And then I did a little bit more research. And also Andrew Denton had her on Enough Rope. And she was also on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And she was also on This Is Your Life. And this was all in 2004 alone. And in 2011, she was a contestant on Channel 9's Celebrity Apprentice Australia.
Yeah.
And then that's 2011. From 1998, when she loses her seat in Parliament, she runs for the Queensland Senate in 01 and loses. Stands in New South Wales Upper House in 03, loses. Runs as an independent in 04 in Queensland, loses. Launches the Pauline's United Australia Party in 07, if you remember that. And fails to pick up a Queensland Senate seat in the 07 election. 09 stands as an independent in the Queensland state election, loses. 2011, she actually returns back after living in the UK and nominates for the New South Wales Legco, loses. Then does Celebrity Apprentice. 14 announces her comeback. She's going to lead One Nation, contests the election. And then 2016, she wins in a double dissolution election and then gets re-elected in 2022. Like, it's interesting just to sort of look at her. Like, she literally lost.
She's a loser. That's what I'm taking out of this.
And then lost and then lost and kept losing. But she kept on getting put on TV to do all this soft stuff.
Yeah.
No.
I did enjoy. I listened to Barry Cassidy screaming outrage about how the fact that One Nation are boycotting The Guardian and the ABC should be met with a media insistence that they'll refuse all for one and one for all. They'll refuse to cover her until she lets them in. And I'm like, oh man, like what kind of rarefied air do you think the media are breathing? Like, firstly, half of you are boosting this woman, the other half of you are nakedly trying to tear her down.
Yeah.
The media.
Carl Stefanovic is running a podcast that is just the Pauline channel at this point.
Right.
And yet still, on morning TV.
Let's go to Victorian state politics. Once again, leadership rumblings against Premier Jacinta Allen kicked off. It was round 2, 5 months out from the state poll on the 28th of November. The final caucus meeting before the winter recess was last week, and people assumed that this would be the last realistic window to attempt to change leaders before the break. And it fizzed the day before caucus. Jacinta Allen and her, what we perceive as her main rival, according to the media, Deputy Premier Ben Carroll, ruled out a challenge at a press conference, standing right beside her, and was dared.
Some awkward TV that was.
Oh, really awkward TV. Dared by the Channel 7 State Rounds reporter to look the Premier in the eye and say he wasn't coming for her job. And Ben Carroll turned to her and said, I can look you in the eye and say that, Premier. And essentially all but killed momentum. David, to you first. Is this, strategically speaking, the worst leadership challenge in ALP history since Simon Crean challenged Julia Gillard?
Yeah, that was a bad moment. I think what that moment with Ben Carroll revealed, because obviously I don't know, is that there was no challenge, and I think because you'll remember he also, I remember I watched it and he spoke about his daughter and how daughters and how he's going to be proud to say that to them as they grow up that he supported an outstanding woman to be Labor Premier. And as soon as he said that, I thought, well, that's it. There's no challenge, because he can't say that and walk that back by Friday, like it's Tuesday or Monday, whatever
It may suggest that Ben wasn't spearheading the challenge.
Right.
He may still have been the proposed candidate, whether he was spearheading it or not.
Sure, but at some point, no matter how Machiavellian and clever these conspirators are, they do need to let the candidate in on the secret, don't they? And so the candidate
may have been pushing back.
The candidate obviously effectively ruled himself out. And I think this goes to Jessie's point, which is that, I think some of the Premier's most significant critics inside the Labor Party are not inside the state parliamentary Labor Party. And it's very hard to run a challenge from remote control outside the building. And they failed. So I guess to circle back to your question, I don't think it was the worst challenge, because it wasn't really. It's worse than stillborn. It never got off the planning page, and Ben effectively ruled himself out very early. So, notwithstanding the very deep anxiety inside the parliamentary party about the condition of Labor in Victoria, and the rise of One Nation and the upcoming state election, I think equally they've said, well, changing leader is not the solution. The transaction costs are high. Stability in government is one of our pluses. We don't want to wreck that. We don't have a messiah waiting in the wings who's well known in the community. We're going to see this through with Jacinda Allen, and those who very strongly hold a contrary view are not in the Parliamentary Labor Party.
No, but they are performing, as it's been put to me, the greatest game of political edging that has ever been seen.
Oh, that's terrible.
This ongoing date change and will they, won't they is just tiresome at this point. And you've got to see some action for all of the.
These analogies are causing my head to spin. This is sounding a bit more like Kyle and Jackie O now, isn't it?
Well, I'm here for ratings. I don't know what you thought I was brought on for, but it's to improve the ratings. I'm trying to lift the standard.
Well, we've definitely got our reel for the week, but we'll have to put an explicit warning on it beforehand.
Exactly. It was certainly a very anticlimactic moment, wasn't it?
Indeed.
A lot of the chatter coming out of the caucus is that, to your point, David, and to your point, Jessie, we're not talking about it. Everyone's talking about it outside of the caucus, but it's not coming up amongst ourselves. And in fact, the Tuesday caucus meeting just ran like a normal caucus meeting. It was quite pleasant, in fact, they said. And then there was, I can't remember, I read somewhere in the paper the day after, there was a quote in the media that said Carol Backers, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said Carol's comments reinforce the doubts that they are backing him, resulting in a stalemate of the party leadership, to which my question would be, why are you backing him then if you've got doubts? And then while agitators have not ruled out launching a challenge when Palmer returns from the 6-week break on the 28th, oh, come on. Are you for real?
The edging continues.
I can't see it unless they come up with a different candidate, or I just think this is going to continue to be media fizz, which is distracting for the government. It's not doing them any good.
No.
I appreciated that Samaya from the AFR not only launched the challenge, but 4 days later declared it over. And I thought it was remarkable.
I've had enough of that. Let's move on.
Kind of fair enough, though, isn't it? Like, she did everything she could to get her candidate out of the stalls, but he just wouldn't fucking run.
It's an automatic 2-point bump if you go with him. Literal quote from her article.
Luke Hilakari, the Victorian Trades Hall Council Secretary, went public as well that week, spraying the Labor caucus of slacking off on the campaign trail 5 months out from the election, which landed in MPs' inboxes just as they were leaving the caucus meeting. The timing was amazing. In the email,
that was a dead cat for internal chats.
Yeah.
People
Yes.
were not talking about the leadership after that email landed.
No, if there's ever one way of uniting a caucus that's divided, accuse them of being lazy. Geez,
Some of them will even get off the banana lounge. They're so incensed.
yeah, absolutely. There's a cultural reference from the 1970s. So the email to MPs with the blunt subject line, complacent MPs should not expect any support. And he said that he was frankly enraged to learn that 23 MPs or candidates had zero conversations with voters in the last fortnight. That was on Campaign Central, which is the party's sort of database. Hilakari said if named MPs didn't lift their voter contact rates in the next fortnight, he'd recommend to the Trades Hall executive that they would not be campaigning in their seat and floated stripping marginal seat support as well. His line, start campaigning or start packing. And the response from unnamed sources within the caucus was, that's poor form. And I'm just wondering as I go to both of you here, because I know that Jessie will always have her campaign hat on and wonder where she will fall down on this argument. But David has both been a campaigner and a member of parliament. So I'm interested to see if we have some agreement on this. I have my own reflections as well. But was this poor form by the Victorian Trades Hall secretary, or do MPs need to have a bit of a kick up the backside with 153 days from election day? I'll go to you, Jessie, first.
Okay, well, I'll open with the fact that anyone on a campaign has written an email like this in anger and not sent it. So I don't know whether I necessarily – no, I credit Luke for having the gall to actually press send.
Kamikaze pilots, you got to say they were brave, weren't they? They were brave.
We've all thought it. We've said it amongst ourselves outside of a caucus, and he wrote it down and sent it to him. So, credit to him. Whether I would have phrased things different ways, to some extent, I don't know if it would have mattered if he changed how he phrased that email. The calling them out on it was always going to upset quite a few caucus members. Stephen, I'm not going to nick your reflection on this. So I would like to go to you at some point and hear that, and then I will contribute after that.
Weak. David.
It's not weak. I just don't want to steal your really good point.
And that's why she can't carry the show, mate.
You don't know what my point. You don't know what my point is. I wrote it this morning.
Oh, if it's not that, I'll give the other one. But sorry, go on, David.
Yeah. I really like Hilakari. I credit him with rebuilding the prestige and authority of the Victorian Trades Hall from very little to something very significant, and that's his work. And so he's made an enormous contribution. I rate him. This was silly, and he shouldn't have done it. It's the kind of reflection and beating he should have administered in private, not in public. And there were two problems. The first is that in his admonishing of the parliamentary party, he used statistics and quotas that just tell our enemies too much about us and how we work. And he enlivened that, the spectre of trade unions controlling parliamentarians and the state parliamentary Labor Party, which we don't, the coalition and the forces of the right don't need any help getting that zombie out of bed every morning. So he shouldn't have given them a hand. So it was an undisciplined effort. And he shouldn't have done it.
Okay, so I will say a couple of things about that. I reckon this email is 600th on the list of things that we could talk about when it comes to unions, the Labor Party, and the campaign that's going to be run in Victoria. I don't think this email is going anywhere near it.
You don't think it's going to make the top 10?
I don't think it's going to make the top 10. Two,
I think she's onto something there.
Two, the state secretary and the assistant state secretary this morning, Friday, briefed cabinet about their strategy and One Nation. It's all in the paper today. So the concept that he's given away anything, it was 2 weeks of data that didn't have which target seats, it was the whole list, and it was just who's made phone calls. So again, on the list of things that have given our opponents any intelligence, Like, I don't know that could be levelled at him. The thing that I thought Stephen was going to say, but he's told me he thought about this new thing this morning, so I can now steal, is what I think that it is the bit of the disconnect for those of us outside of the caucus and those inside the caucus is we are very invested in the Labor government and winning and wanting everyone to do well. And there is a frustration sometimes when some caucus members feel like it's all about their job. So there's this pushback about, don't you tell me how to win my seat. This is about me winning. And I'm obviously trying hard because this is my job. There is a feeling of those of us outside the caucus that this is important to all of us. Labor governments are important to all of us, and all of us should put in and make it work to win. So I have found some of the response to it to be a little bit about, well, don't have a crack at me. Well, there are broader people in the movement beyond just MPs.
Yeah, and I did have a moment of sympathy for, cabinet ministers who, Stephen will have no sympathy for this position, but there are some who, have got a lot of portfolios that matter a lot to the survival of this government, and they may not have as much time to pick up the phone and ring constituents as they would like.
Premier famously has been door knocking, right?
And and she's making calls too, which is incredible and excellent. But
so whether they will respond within like the way that we want them to, I don't know, but I do have some. Yeah, I do think that there is a space for those who are not in the caucus to sort of say this is about all of us and pitch in.
If I can just echo what you've just said.
Your point.
Well, it was your point, mate. She just
no. But I'm going to go further. And I think that Luke Hilakari is speaking for a lot of us in the broader movement, party members, former campaign heads, trade union members, Labor supporters, who just want Labor governments to get elected and stay elected. And I think there is a frustration that's building. We are 150 days out from the election, and this Labor team, and I'm using the word team intentionally because I'm not talking just about the caucus, I'm talking about the entire operation that wins and loses elections. We're looking a little bit lost. We're in the news fighting amongst ourselves about who should be leader. I don't get any consistency in terms of what our central message is. We're mostly talking about ourselves, not about voters. We're reactive. We lack discipline. We're not united. We're not hungry, and we look average. And I thought to myself, I've seen this before. Where is this so familiar? And I went, I know what it is. It's the fucking Liberal Party. They're the ones that normally look like that. Why are we now looking like that? And you can be critical about what Luke said, but I think the sentiment is the part that matters, not how many doors people knocked or whatever. But I'll be honest, I am worried about what happened about us losing in November. And I've always believed that a campaign can be turned around with enough time, and I think this one can. So I want to be clear about that. I think that we can win this. But what I'm seeing at the moment, broadly from the team, I'm worried that we're not ready. Like, it's got the hallmarks of a party that's either tired or isn't hungry enough to get re-elected. And when you're hungry, you don't make mistakes. Hunger brings focus. And if you remember, for the Victorian state election in 2010, the Frankston train line was closed for maintenance on the day of the election. Government service running through 4 crucial seats, and we lost them all. Now, we didn't lose the election because of that particular decision, right? But it's emblematic of a team that lost its laser focus, and we need to have our eyes on the prize. So the voter contact numbers just makes me think, where's the hunger from MPs? And that has to manifest beyond just the MPs to the staff, to head office. So if you're tired, because this has been a government's been around for a long time, that's okay. Move on. And as for all this leadership speculation, it's the wrong solution because it's the wrong diagnosis. When Daniel Andrews retired, he handed over 56 seats, majority. We had 39 points in the primary in the polls, and 3 years till election day to enable a new government to establish a relationship with the electorate. And here we are with a primary in the mid-20s. So a leadership change isn't going to fix this. It's not a leadership problem. It's Labor's problem. It's the whole team. It's everyone's problem. And it's going to, I think it's going to take all of us to fix it, right? And so I would suggest to those that are involved in this work, you need over the weekend, go into your bathroom, have a good hard look at yourself, and then say to yourself, am I in or am I out? Because if you're out, then go now. But if you're
you're not just talking to the caucus there.
No, I'm talking about everyone that's involved in this campaign, staff, head office, MPs, ministers, the Premier, you name it, right? Everyone has to win this thing. Yeah. But if you are in, then, you've got to be 100% committed to this job, no half-assing it, and get on. The government's got to be clear about what they stand for, what is the heart of this government, and communicate that every single day. We've got to be clear about what we want to say about our opponents, which is both One Nation and the Tories and the Nats and the Greens, and make them feel some heat. And I said in the last podcast, and I'll say it again, and start the campaign now. And I don't mean by making an announcement to the media we're starting the campaign now. I just mean quietly go about and pick 100 of the most talented campaigners in the country, bring them here, and then start a 150-day campaign strategy now. Do that. It will put yourself in a position to win. Otherwise, we are going to sleepwalk ourselves into a loss. And I don't want that. None of us want that to happen. We just got to find the people that have the hunger, basically. That's where I feel anyway. I feel much better getting that off my chest.
Yeah, I just don't have the hunger to say anything in response.
It's a good thing he's not running the campaign.
He's done a couple. All right, let's go to nominations.
Starting with worn-out old pack horse.
Let's go to the first one, Tory with a typewriter or Tree Tory with a typewriter. We got a nomination from Roger. Can we nominate Paul Dowsley for his unhinged line of questioning this week towards Jacinta Allen, where he was hounding the Premier about a fake challenge? He thought it was a flex, but he just came off as a pest. The Treasurer said it best when she said he was trying to make up a story.
Yeah, so Dowsley has been quite explicitly sent into the state rounds to do this. This is his job. His job is to pester and to annoy till he gets a TV clip that they can put on the internet that a lot of people will watch. That is essentially his brief that he's been sent in to do. So expect more of it from him. Expect more of him chasing down backbenchers, ministers, Premier, and trying to put them under sort of this intense questioning. Whether it's good journalism or not, I'll leave it to others to judge.
You remember Sky did this with Albo, where they had someone running around, how much is a loaf of bread?
Yeah.
What does a carton of eggs cost?
What's the fastest animal on the planet?
Yeah. It's genuinely the strategy with Dowsley. That's his job.
Another one, this is from Adrian Boothman, the Coalition's ongoing struggle to explain what it would actually do differently on cost of living, housing and productivity beyond opposing whatever Labor proposes. Plenty of criticism, not much road map. There's one from Adrian. Thank you, Adrian. And I've got one. Did anyone see Jim Chalmers' interview on 60 Minutes with Tara Brown? I'm just going to play your clip.
Did you intend to make life harder for young Australians?
Oh, of course not. I mean, this is all about making it easier for young Australians to buy their first home.
You must be taken by surprise then to encounter the outcry from young people.
For too long, young people have been locked out of the housing market. It is, as I said, that our housing market is broken and the tax system is part of the problem rather than part of the solution. And so we're rectifying that.
Now, because of your budget, they think their only chance of getting ahead is actually to leave the country. I mean, if that's the case, you've failed, haven't you?
Well, again, I mean, let's look at the facts of what we're proposing here.
I'm telling you the facts of this scenario.
Yeah.
But have you not failed in that case?
No, of course not.
I mean, and it goes on and on and on.
Well, she just knows better, doesn't she? She's telling the Treasurer the facts of the scenario.
I don't care about what you're going to say about the tax system. The fact is I've talked to one person who's young who doesn't like the budget.
Who's now living in London.
It's probably your daughter.
The arrogance of these people.
Oh,
Unbelievable. The first question, did you intend to make life harder for us young
Yes, I
Australians?
did.
Yeah.
That was my
Yeah,
Well,
deal.
actually, yes, Tara, I did. Yeah, one day me and our team got together. We got absolutely blotto on Negronis and we thought, you know what, fuck it. Let's just roll the dice and make it harder for young Australians. And look how
And I
it
thought
turned
I'd
out.
tell the truth on your program because I know no one of consequence whatsoever.
Yeah.
I saw Jim in the Parliament, a grab from him in the Parliament yesterday, which was pretty good, where the coalition spokesperson was saying, if the business is, if it's a butcher, if it's a hairdresser, then how are you expecting them to cope with these changes? And Jim said, what, a hairdressing business that makes more than $10 million a year? Maybe where you get your hair done. And the bald guy was kind of like, oh, and everyone's, he's quick on his feet, which is lovely. He's remorselessly on message. What you just played to us is an example of this. He will not get flustered. He knows that pictures are more important than anything. He stays calm. He stays reasonable.
And he's also been prepared after this budget to go and do all of the interviews. Like
yeah, that's true too.
He's fronting up everywhere. Yeah.
Indeed.
I will say this concept that young people are like in the streets about the budget. Like, is it just because a bunch of those rich people in the startup community paid their staff to do the videos and they're young? Is that why the media are confused about who's upset about this budget?
Well,
Tara, who are you asking? I mean, honestly, Tara, just stick to reporting.
Tara knows the facts of this scenario.
Tell you what,
Tara should just stick to reporting botched Lebanese custody battles.
when Gen Z get together, all they want to talk about is capital gains. Have you not noticed?
Can't get enough of it.
Watching the bubble slowly deflate in our property sector, great for the economy. No one's allowed to admit it. Yeah.
No, well, if you've been on the podcast last month, we did talk about the fact that it might have been a bit easier if we just picked the winner and said.
Yeah, I tried to listen to it last month, but it just was so slow.
You knew as soon as you said that, Jesse, you were just absolutely.
I just couldn't battle my way through to the end,
Melbourne Inga, In Over My Head Award. This is from Adrian Boothman. Parts of the tech sector spent the month trying to convince Australians that a 30% tax on discretionary trust distributions was the nation's most pressing economic challenge. The problem wasn't that the argument lacked technical merit. It was that it lacked political resonance. When the average voter is worried about paying the mortgage, leading with a trust taxation is a bit like bringing a spreadsheet to a barbecue. Thoughts on Adrian's nomination about the tech sector being in over their head on this one?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit disappointed that the government's felt the need to make any amendments to its position, really, because although they've successfully negotiated the passage of the legislation with the Greens, and 10 out of 10 for that, because you've had these sorts of guerrilla actions run around the margins by wealthy vested interests, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry bemoaning the People's Republic of Gold Toilets and how they're going to suffer. And you've had, as you say, startups. You've had people with using trusts instead of wills. It's all very obscure. For genuine cases, it's easily fixable. And I really feel like our political opponents have been clutching at straws rather than really making hay with their critique of the budget.
Yeah, I feel like they moved. The death tax is something that we're always very wary of, and I do understand, even though, like, rightly they said there is no death tax in here, but I do think they wanted to make very clear that there was no death tax and there was some sort of changes.
But just to show how woke I am, like by the time the next federal election comes around, there'll be lived experience of how all these inflated claims about what these changes are going to do are just that. They're inflated.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yes, it does feel like the Twitter outrage of old and how we overreacted to that sort of thing when Twitter was new and journalists would get 4 tweets and suddenly think everything is the worst in the world. I think a couple of viral clips on Instagram do not make an election or government.
Probably unanswerable questions. We've got two. One from Adrian Boothman again. Adrian's on a heater this month. If productivity growth is Australia's biggest economic challenge, why does every debate eventually descend into arguments about where people sit rather than how work gets done? I think he's talking about the work from home.
Because they can't come up with a good reason to argue against work from home, so they come up with productivity. That's it, right? Like that, it's the whole argument they're making without actually producing any data about the changes to productivity that work from home creates.
I think this debate jumped the shark when the Herald Sun put out a job advertising for working at the Herald Sun, and in the job description they had flexible work arrangements in which you can work at home. Meanwhile, on their front page, they were decrying working from home. So
they're fully hybrid. Like they are.
The other probably unanswerable question is, and I'm going to play the clip first.
Minister, how about you? Have you completed anti-racism training? This online module has been available for 3 years.
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Why not?
Well, I guess I should. So I shall endeavour to do it.
Okay, good. And could you... Sorry?
And set a good example.
Okay, that would be really great if you could, and if you could encourage your colleagues. Hopefully, Minister, when I talk to you about this next time, you would have undertaken anti-racism training.
That'll certainly be the case.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Now, my question is, did Senator Faruqi expect the answer that she got from Senator Farrell? Because I think she was going in there for a fight, and Don is...
I'll fill it out.
He wasn't born yesterday. And in classic Don, he was like, you know what? Yeah, I will. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when there was a protest outside of a little-known MP's office in the Cooper area.
Uh-huh.
And he might have gone out to the protest and jumped behind the banner and walked up High Street, was it, David, to join the protest?
I call it vampiring a protest. I wanted all of those trolls to understand that they'd printed those banners for me. Because all the photos had me in the middle of the banner. Yeah, it was.
Where are we going, folks? What are we doing? I'm with you.
What again? Yeah, I'm in. Yeah, they were a bit annoyed. They were there to vilify me. Anyway, to Don Farrell, I think that he held his fire very well. And isn't it just another wonderful example of, what the Greens mistake for progress?
Mm.
Yeah.
That everyone should do an online anti-racism. Anti-racism is this new catechism for the ultra-left. Everything needs to be put in these identity prisms. Just an utter nonsense. And there's Don thinking, I can spend 15 minutes telling her this is nonsense while she denounces me as a racist patriarch who's part of a colonial Western society who's crushing the oppressed, or I can just say I'll do it.
Yeah. And when she said, when he said, I mean, that was that's actually on the Greens. That's on her page. So she thinks that they're owning Don. And I looked at that and went, oh, Don looks really reasonable and like just a good bloke. And going, yeah, I'll do that. That's a good idea. And when he said something, she went, what? What did you say? And he went, it was like, yeah, something we all should do.
Set a good example.
Set a good example. Love it. Good job. Okay, Alexander Downer Political Judgment of the Award. This one's from Robert LaRocca. Can I nominate the Liberal Party for the Alexander Downer Political Judgment Award for electing Alexander Downer as its federal vice president?
What I loved was watching Alexander Downer become the Liberal left candidate against Tony Abbott. I did mutter to some of my friends in the Liberal Party, including one Christopher Pyne, how hilarious it is that Alexander Downer had become their candidate. If you stick around long enough, you can see
it all
everything.
comes part.
It all comes part.
Yeah. And the other nominee,
him and Tony working together closely.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I didn't nominate it, but I did put it on the Social Democratic account. Do you remember? I don't know if you saw this, David, but Jessie, do you remember? I was just scrolling through Instagram one night, and Peter Credlin's page came up. and she's in her kitchen in her gym gear, and standing next to her is Tony Abbott in a suit, and she's talking about some story great news has just come back about.
It's just happened.
Just happened. I was coming back from the gym, and I just heard that some great news that the Australian government has decided to do something about some veterans. I can't remember.
It backflipped on it. It was an oversight, really, whatever.
Please for the family, blah, blah, blah. But she talks for like 3 minutes, and Tony Abbott's just standing there staring at the camera, and he doesn't say anything. And it's kind of like, I've just come back from the gym, and really enough, Tony Abbott's in my kitchen.
Reminded everyone of when he was Prime Minister and he worked for her.
We're on to, what have we got? Flex category, so hot take, wild card, extra ballots found. David, I think you've got one. I think we almost need to create a new category. The Dean Hutton category.
Yeah. So as you know, we kind of double as Radio Freedom, and I've been talking to people who are deep behind enemy lines about the various struggles they're enduring. And one of those is that remarkable freedom fighter, Drew Hutton.
Oh, Drew Hutton, sorry.
Drew, you'll remember, is a founder of the Greens political party, who was then expelled from the party for wrongthink and for suggesting that women were in fact women and men were in fact men. So he was expelled from the party. He took the Greens to court, clashed with their leader, was reinstated, and has now resigned from the Greens party, having won his long legal battle, declaring the Greens is now the party of pronouns, not the environment. When a political party starts treating a good person, a hero even, as an evil bigot, it's become an authoritarian cult. Drew Hutton, who found the Australian Greens, was first suspended for pointing out that trans women are not in fact women. He was subsequently booted out, reinstated on appeal, and finally resigned this week. But, ladies and gentlemen, the saga, I'm sure, will go on because he is now going to form his own political action group, and he is going to fight on against the Greens party because it's betrayed the environment and become an extremist woke organisation. So good luck to that brave group of freedom fighters fighting up in the mountains. I hope their next shipment of arms and food arrives on time.
Every time you bring up Drew, I think two things. The first thing I think is, honestly, I think you talk about this topic way more than anyone else in the Labor Party.
I don't talk about it more than Drew Hutton does.
No, not in the Labor Party.
I don't talk about this topic more than the panel that expelled Drew Hutton does.
No, but when we talk about this mind virus, like of you definitely bring up this topic more than anyone else I know.
That's the first thing I think. You are just turning your back on some quality humour here.
The second thing I think,
as a small deranged political party expels its founder for using the wrong pronouns.
Do you know what else I think? I think of every time we have someone who's expelled from the Labor Party, that, you know, there are many, many examples of this, who suddenly become freedom fighters in the paper who are pushing back against the Labor Party. Kathy Jackson maybe comes to mind, that suddenly they're lionised for, like, you know, wasn't like Tony Abbott doing press conferences with her? Like, suddenly someone's finally standing up against the Labor Party.
These people all resign. They don't get expelled. It's really hard to expel someone. Like, we expelled, I can't remember his name, like in 1973 or something. Like, you've got to go to state conference. You've got to get a resolution. It never happens. It never happens. We don't expel anybody, but people do resign in shame. That's true. And thank God for the power of resignation, or no one would have ever left.
The last nomination is from Max, and it's he says, does the Labor Party have a problem with natural – this is a hot take – does the Labor Party have a problem with natural attrition on its front bench? Rough back of envelope calculations, currently Labor has 6 MPs who have been on the front bench for 20 years plus, another 9 MPs who have been on the front bench for 10 years plus. I know everybody wants to be a minister forever, but is it time to bring back the parliamentary pension and kick some of these front bench stalwarts and let some of the younger talent get some experience? Who wants to have a swing at that one?
Which parliamentary party is he talking about?
I'm assuming federal.
I'll go with this first. The first is, and these numbers will be out of date, I would be interested in those stats specifically for the New South Wales right, because it was put to be before the 22 election, I think, that the average CEO lasts about 7 years. That's the industry average for an ASX listed company. And at that point, the New South Wales right shadow ministry had a average of 20 years in the parliament, which did seem excessive. But the second thing I would say to this is that I have always been a supporter of returning the pension, not as avidly and as outwardly as Tony Barry, who keeps every time I do ABC radio pushing this barrow, and I'm like I'm not going to go over the hill with you on this, Tony. No, but I do think that it is better for democracy, and I think that the McKinnon Institute should be doing more to push it. Like I think it does wonders for, one, turnover, but two, it reduces corruption in politics, and I think that's a good thing.
I agree with all that. It's just never going to happen.
No.
And, that is what it is. I'm surprised about those statistics. They sound much longer to me than is credible. I mean, we haven't been in government that long or that often. I guess he's talking about people who have been in the shadow ministry as well as government ministry.
I see so.
I mean, I've said before, and I'll repeat, that I think the Federal Parliamentary Labor Party has just got a lot of talent in it, and you do want to keep that conveyor belt moving. It did a little bit after the last federal election.
I suspect it will again before the next.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably got the pace, about where the polity wants it. Really, you want continuity, you want fresh
with change. You want continuity with change.
Yeah, as one famous vice president of the United States said, continuity with change. So, yeah.
Very good. Do either of you have a Social Democrat of the Month?
Well, I think we should just point out, particularly given a previous episode I did, that the Makerfield by-election has been fought and was quite a stunning result for the British Labor Party. One of the most significant by-elections in political history. It slayed the idea that seat was set to be a reform seat. It sort of exposed the impotence of reform in the face of their sort of right-wing competitors in Restore. And it showed that the British Labor Party is perhaps capable of renewal. So interesting days ahead. And I think Andy has got to be the Social Democrat of the Month.
I read an article this week that sort of pointed out that political tragics tend to spend most of their time after by-elections pointing out that by-elections don't usually portend, like they don't lead to massive change, or that they're always their own thing. But this may be the most consequential by-election in history.
The Prime Minister resigned a few days afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Actually lived up to the hype, this one.
It did, yeah.
Mm.
And I think the result in itself was quite resounding for
55% in a first past the post election. Yep. Reform got 34, Restore got 7, Restore came third. People were wondering if Andy would win because the right-wing vote was split. But in fact, even if you put Reform and Restore together, he still has a comfortable win. So he kind of won on all the points.
And he didn't even take that many.
More people voted than at the general election.
Yeah.
So he got new people to the booth and they were voting for him.
Yeah, the question will be if that appeal moves past an area where he's very, very well known.
Yes, that's true, but it's also an area that's 97% white and working class, and that some weeks earlier had voted 55% for Reform in council elections. So it was a significant moment, in part because it showed that British Labor could still win in what had become rolled gold reform country.
You heard it here first, David saying that Andy will win the next election.
Well, I certainly will be barracking for that. But given the conversation we were having earlier about, One Nation and what is it, how do you fight it, these battles all needs good attention from us.
I agree.
Let's go to Who Won the Month. I did have Andy Burnham down as Who Won the Month. I thought, obviously, but I don't add any more to what you just said, David. I concur with all of that. Jessie, do you have anyone that you think won the month?
Yeah, so I was originally going to say Deb O'Neill, but now I'm going to have to give it as a joint sort of award to her and the rest of the committee. Those of consulting world may have been also watching that hearing on Friday. And I think that it was a really good example of the committee working together to get outcomes and really get to the bottom of issues. And it was actually quite wonderful to watch them all work together. The Liberal Senator Scar, I think his name was, he did some grandstanding, and I sort of thought, oh, well, I'm going to have to make him a joint winner this week. But I do think while, and Deb O'Neill said this during the hearing, not this explicitly, but there's a lot of talk in the general community about what the polity is and the state of democracy and big institutions and protecting them and them all being in a club. And I think that committee just demonstrates that the Senate, well, it was actually a joint committee, can do really good work for the public.
And Deb's done this before, of course.
Yeah, in a way that no other sort of format can. No one else would able to get to the bottom of this in the way that this committee has. So she's led the charge, and I tip my hat to her.
Another nomination is also from Adrian Boothman. He said, interesting result with the United Workers Union elections with Joanne Schofield United for You team winning the majority of delegates for its convention on the 27th of July, but looks to have lost her position as a delegate. Tim Kennedy, the now outgoing National Secretary, failed to be elected as a delegate too. It'll be interesting to see what becomes of the new National Executive. Dave, you messaged me, I think, when I was in Japan, and about what's going on.
I understand that the old MISO's leadership has won, and that at the convention they will fill all of the positions. So it's a stunning result. I mean, I guess it was a winner takes all. So one team was going to get everything and one team was going to lose everything. That's just the nature of the contest. But it does mean that, a significant Labor right tendency passes into the night. The tendency of the old National Union of Workers, the old Stormont and Packers, of Kelty and Crean, and many, many others. It's a significant moment, and I guess it's a moment of triumph for the MISOs and for their leadership as they take control of the amalgamated union.
Any other nominations? Oh, sorry, who won the week? Are we done? Who won the month, I should say? We good?
Like Pauline, I don't know, can we keep putting her up as having won?
I think the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps might have done quite close to winning the week. But we'll probably talk more about that on another occasion.
Yeah.
Trump definitely lost.
Before we go, just a reminder that Socially Democratic is coming to Sydney. We're up in Sydney for the New South Wales Labor Conference on Saturday, the 4th of July. We've got a show during the Fringe program, which will be at 4 p.m. It's first in, best dressed. It's not ticketed. So if you are at the New South Wales Labor Conference, please come along to myself and a bunch of other New South Wales-based guests. And looking forward to sitting down with those guys and talking about the history of the conference and what's actually happening at that conference. And they've got an election next year, so lots to talk about there. So please come along to that. Also, to let you know that we've got 2 shows at the ALP National Conference, which will be at the end of July, or at some point during July. We've got the show that's physically in the Fringe, and that's on party membership. And then we've got a Feeney Files with Jessie McCrone, which actually is on the Friday night, and that's a ticketed event, and it's $45. Tickets are now on sale, and just follow the links in the show notes. That's taking place outside of the Fringe at the Jade, which I think is on Flinders Street in Adelaide. Please if you're in Adelaide, get yourself a ticket to our live show. It's going to be a lot of fun, and looking forward to doing that. And also, Dunn Street is, as you know, we send a delegation to the United States every September. A part of that delegation this year, the alumni of previous delegations and sponsors are sponsoring specifically a seat to a woman from the Labor movement who would normally not have an opportunity to go on such a mission to Washington and New York. And if you are interested in attending the delegation, there's an application process and there's a selection committee which is made up of former delegates to the mission. Applications are open now. There'll be a link in the show notes to apply, and it's all paid for, flights and the delegation program. All you need to do is apply, and applications close on the 31st of July, so you've got plenty of time, so just look out for that as well. David's ran off already, so goodbye, David. Jessie, thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
And we will see you all next week. Have a great week, everyone. Hey, Social Democrats. Thanks for listening. Today's episode was hosted by myself, Stephen Donnelly, and produced by Grace Eyre. If you like the show, please rate us and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really like the show, then join our Patreon community for early and ad-free access to each episode. We regularly take questions and comments from our Patreon members, so get in there if you want to have your say. And finally, get all the latest updates and bonus content by following Socially Democratic on our social media channels. The links are in our show notes. See you next Friday.